Everyone's looking for the young guy. They're looking for McVay. I think take a shot out Todd Bowles, get him a second shot at head coach, and see if you can do it.
I don't think they will. If they don't have Anthony Davis, I'm saying it right now. If Anthony Davis is out for the playoffs, they don't make it out of the first round.
It's crazy. And our kids will know how great Tom Brady is because he's going to be playing.
Yes, it is 15.0%.
That's what the Yankees brought Garrett Cole to do.
He was a 6th-round pick. This is a fairy tale story that's being written in front of our eyes.
People like to call them their JV team, and they just stole one of their better players.
They didn't struggle against the Padres. The Padres didn't really put up a fight in most of the games.
Jerry Jones, hope you're listening.
Hi, I'm Landon Bowe, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week. And we're still talking about running back, Austin. But this is a different type of running back because we have argued drafting a running back high in the first round. And I do think the NFL is circular, kind of the advancement, because as defenses get lighter and the linebackers kind of become more like DBs, you see a lot of teams having success in the run. And one thing that I think you could see is going after a top pick. Like, where does Jeremiah Love go in the draft? However, you brought it up. The two running back system, kind of Ben Johnson's brought that idea. So I'll let you explain kind of the idea for Clint Kubiak using it.
Yeah, Clint Kubiak said that with Ashton Jeanty and the Raiders, they're going to run a 2 RB system. They obviously did that while Charbonnet was healthy in Seattle, and it was extremely successful. Ben Johnson has made it a testament to his offensive genius, where he ran Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. He also, now that he's with the Bears this past season, ran a rookie alongside DeAndre Swift. So it's DeAndre Swift, a common guy. A lot of teams have started to implement this. And do you think this is a common practice that a lot of OCs will start to implement, or do you think this is more of a just some teams will do it, some teams won't? Because I think the Steelers also did it with Gainwell and Jalen Ward, and there's been a lot of teams that have, I think, started to play with it a little bit, but the Eagles still only use Saquon, really. Sure, they have Will Shipley, but they didn't really use him that much. Same thing with A.J. Dillon. The Packers, I know they had Emmanuel Wilson, but they ran a lot with Josh Jacobs whenever he was healthy. That's the same thing with the Ravens and Derrick Henry. A lot of these quote-unquote bell cow backs, Jonathan Taylor, they don't really get a 2 RB system. But then you also have, like the Falcons had a 2 RB system this past year with Algier and Bijan. So do you think this is something that gets exponentially more popular as teams that use it have a lot of success? Or do you think this is some OCs won't like to use it?
I think there's a fun debate between it because if you look at Ben Johnson, he really has no connection to the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan tree. And that's a lot of OCs right now that become head coaches. They come from Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur. But now you kind of have different. Clint Kubiak really isn't part of that system. So I think it's a fun debate about a different OC and kind of a different approach to offense than the typical Shanahan tree that's kind of dominated the league. But I could see the 2 running back system developing because of injuries. And if, let's say, you want to spend money on or a pick on and money on a running back and like, okay, you're going to pay that guy, add a change of pace guy. And I think that's what you saw with the Bears, and where one guy can really accept the role. And that's what Ben Johnson did with the Lions. You had, I'm trying to think. You had, first it was Jamal Williams, and then I can't remember, and then Swift. But what it is now is Gibbs and David Montgomery. Those are 2 guys that balance each other out, and they spent a high pick on Gibbs. And then you also have Montgomery to take some of the touches. Then with the Bears, you have Kyle Monangai and then DeAndre Swift. And I think that's something you could see where teams, like if you're focusing on the Raiders, you want to maximize Jeanty and what he can do on the field. So I can understand taking an older guy and maybe helping with pass protection, as well as kind of getting a more power back. I do think there is value in having different type of running backs that are do well in their roles.
Yeah, I do think that's what Ben Johnson has made sure to use. Also, I do think that the Falcons too often don't use Bijan in goal line situations, and that's not coming from a fantasy owner because I didn't have him in fantasy this year. I had him on some of my teams, but I feel like sometimes the Falcons don't score in goal line situations because they're too reliant on using Algier in short yardage. I just think a balance is important and making sure you get your guys touches, your best players touches close to the end zone. I think is important because Bijan didn't have as many touchdowns as he probably should have if he was able to get some of the yardage inside the 20s, which is the most valuable for a team and for fantasy. But I think that teams will start to use a 2 running back system, especially because of I think it extends the shelf life of both running backs in that situation. I think Dave Montgomery has extended his career. I think a lot of these guys have extended their career in a 2 running back system because they only have to worry about. I mean, if you're the second, if you're the RB2, if you're 1B, you're only getting 40% of the carries, right? So even like a 60-40 split's probably reasonable from a 1A to a 1B. And 40% of the carries, I mean, you can have a much longer career and a much more fruitful, like more yards per carry during your touches because you're given a little bit more rest and more opportunity to kind of focus on what you're good at doing. Instead of where, like you said, a power back. If you're a power back, you're only going to be put in during power back situations. You don't have to worry about that outside zone run or anything like that a power back maybe is not as good at getting to the edge. So, yeah, I do think it's something that should catch on in a lot of areas.
Yeah, and running back is a cheap position where you can hit on guys. You and I have argued about that because Kyle Monangai, I think, was like a 7th round pick. There are a lot of guys in some drafts. Or what were you saying?
I think he was he a 7th or I thought he was. Oh no, he's a 7th round pick. You're right.
Okay. But like you can get a guy, especially in the 2-back system, you don't need to get a bell cow in the later rounds. You just need a productive back. So I could see the argument for that too. Of like we've argued, if I were in the 6th round, I'd take a running back. Even if I already had one, I might take one, just go, okay, see what happens. What can he develop into? That would be easier if you have a 2-back system and you don't need to get a guy that handles everything. But if you can maximize the strengths and use another guy to where that running back is weak, I think you can see a lot of teams changing to it because of just how relatively easy it seems to find cheap running backs.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely think that running backs, not just cheapness in contract, but also, like you mentioned, draft capital is where I think this will get its most run. But I do think the Raiders will obviously add a running back in the draft, probably in the later rounds, to fill the role that Clint Kubiak sees. But I think this is a good thing for running backs more than it is hurtful.
Yeah, it does, because it could also sometimes could lead to a lead back, because there still will be a lead back. It's just how many times are they used during a game?
Yeah, that's true.
So let us know your thoughts in the comments. We appreciate you listening to Outsiders Opinions.